Hello everyone, and welcome back to Interview with the Vampire, a novel by Anne Rice. Shall we get started? Picked up where we left off. Page 24. Oh, thank you, the boy said, as if there was a miraculous suggestion, but once he had the cigarette to his lips, his hands were trembling so badly that he mangled the first fragile book match. Allow me, said the vampire, and taking the book, he quickly put a light match to the boy's cigarette. The boy inhaled, his eyes on the vampire's fingers. Now the vampire withdrew across the table with a soft rustling of garments. There's an ashtray on the basin, he said, and the boy moved nervously to get it. He stared at the few butts in it for a moment, and then see the small waste basket beneath. He emptied the ashtray. He quickly set it on the table. His fingers left damp marks on the cigarette. When he put it down, "Is this your room?" he asked. "No," answered the vampire, "just a room." "What happened then?" the boy asked. The vampire appeared to be watching the smoke gather beneath the overhead bulb. We went back to New Orleans post haste," he said. The last had his coffin in a miserable room near the ramparts. "And did you get into the coffin?" "I had no choice. A bag left it didn't let me stay in the closet," but he laughed, astonished. "Don't you know what you are?" he said. He asked, "But is it magical? Must it have this shape?" I pleaded, only to hear him laugh again. I couldn't bear the idea, but as we argued, I realized I had no real fear. It was strange. It was a strange realization. All my life I had feared closed places, born and bred in French houses with lofty ceilings and floor-length windows. I had dread of being enclosed. I felt uncomfortable even in the national in church. It was a normal enough fear, and now I realize as a protest to the lifestyle, I did not actually fear this anymore. I was simply remembering it, hanging onto it from habit, from a deficiency of ability to recognize my present and exhilarating freedom. "You're carrying on badly," the thought said finally. "It's almost dawn. I should let you die. You will die, you know. The sun will destroy the blood I've given you, and every tissue, every vein. But you shouldn't be feeling this fear at all. I think you were like a man who loses an arm or a leg and keeps insisting that he can feel pain where the arm or leg used to be. Well, that was positively the most intelligent and useful thing Lestat ever said in my presence. It brought me around at once. Now I'm getting into the coffin," he finally said to me in his most disdainful tone. "And you will get in on top of me if you know what's good for you." And I did. I lay face down on him, utterly confused by my absence of dread and filled with a distaste for being so close to him, handsome and intriguing though he was. And he shut the lid. Then I asked him if I was completely dead. My body was tingling and itching all over. No, you're not then, he said. When you are, you'll only hear and see it changing and feel nothing. You should be dead by tonight. Go to sleep. Was he right? Were you dead by when you woke up? Yes. Changed, I should say. As obviously I am alive. My body was dead. It was some time before it became absolutely cleansed of the fluids, and no matter, it no longer needed, but it was dead. And with the realization of it came another stage in my divorce from human emotion. The first thing which became apparent to me, even while Les and I were loading the coffin into a hearse and stealing another coffin from a mortuary, was that I did not like Les at all. I was far from being his equal yet, but I was infatuated closer to him than I had been before the death of my body. I cannot really make this clearer to you for the obvious reason that you are now as I was before my body died. You cannot understand, but before I died, this thought was absolutely the most overwhelming experience I ever had. Your cigarette has become one long cylindrical ash. Oh, the boy quickly grounded the filter into the glass. You mean that when the gap was closed between you, he lost his spell? He asked, his eyes quickly fixed on the vampire. His hand now producing the cigarette image more easily than before. Yes, that's correct, said the vampire with obvious pleasure. The trip back to Point du Lac was thrilling, and the constant chatter of Lassette was positively the most boring and disheartening thing I experienced. Of course, as I said, I was far from being his equal. I had my dead limbs to connect with, to use his comparison, and I learned that on that very night when I had to make the first kill, the vampire reached across the table and gently brushed the ash from the boy's lap. The boy stretched out stared at his withdrawn hand and alone. Excuse me, said the vampire. I didn't mean to frighten you. Excuse me, said the boy. I just got the impression suddenly that your arm was abnormally long. You would suffer without moving. No, said the vampire, resting his hand again on his crossed knees. I moved forward much too fast for you to see. It was an illusion. You moved forward, but you didn't. You were sitting just as you are with your back against the chair. No, repeated the vampire. I moved forward as I told you. Here, I'll do it again. He did it again as the boy stared with the same mixture of confusion and fear. You still didn't see it, said the vampire. But you see, if you look at my outstretching now, it's really not remarkably long at all. And he raised his arm, first finger pointing heavenly as if he were an angel about to give the word of the Lord. You have experienced a fundamental difference between the way you see and I see. My gesture appeared slow and somewhat laggard to me, and the sound of my finger brushing the goat was quite audible. Well, I didn't mean to frighten you, I confess, but perhaps you can see from this that my return to Point du Lac was a feast of new experience. There, the mere swaying of a tree branch and the wind of delight. Yes, yes, said the boy, but he was still visibly shaken. The vampire eyed him for a moment, and then he said, I was telling you about your first kill, said the boy. Yes, I should say first, however, that the plantation was in a state of pandemonium. The overseer's body had been found and had the blind old man in the master bedroom, and so had the blind old man in the master bedroom. No one could explain, and no one had been able to find me in New Orleans. My sister had contacted the police, and several of them were at Point du Lac where I arrived. It was already quite dark, naturally. Lestat was quickly explained to me that I must have not let the police see me in even minimal light, especially not with my body in its present remarkable state. So I talked to them in the avenue of oaks before the plantation house, ignoring their request that we go outside. I explained I'd been to Point du Lac the night before, and that the blind old man was my guest. As for the overseer, he had not been here, but had gone to New Orleans on business. But after that was settled, during which my new detachment served me admirably. I had the problem of the plantation itself. My slaves were in a state of complete confusion, and no work had been done all day. We had a large plant then for the making of the indigo dye, and the overseer's management had been most important, for I had several extremely intelligent slaves who might have done his job just as well as a long time before if I had recognized their intelligence and not feared their African appearance and manner. I studied them clearly now and gave the management of things over to them. To the best, I gave the overseer's house on a promise. 2 of the young women were brought back into the house from the fields to take care of Lestat's father, and I told them I wanted as much privacy as possible, and they would all of them be rewarded not only for their service but for leaving me and Lestat absolutely alone. I did not realize at the time that these slaves would be the first and possibly the only ones to ever suspect that Lestat and I were not ordinary creatures. I failed to realize that their experience with the supernatural was far greater than that of white men. In my own experience, I still thought of them as childlike savages, barely dominant is dead by slavery. I made a bad choice, but let me keep to my story. I was going to tell you about my first kill, Lestat, Baldwin it with his characteristic lack of common sense. Baldwin it, said the boy, asked the boy. I should never have started with human things, but this was something I had to learn by myself. Lestat had plunged us headlong into the swamps right out of the place, and the slaves were settled. It was very late, and the slaves' cabins were completely dark. We soon lost sight of the lights of Point du Lac altogether, and I became very agitated. It was the same thing again. Remembered fears, confusion. Lestat, had he native intelligent, might have explained things to me partially and gently, but that I had no need to fear the swamps, that no snakes and insects. I was utterly invulnerable, that I must concentrate on my new ability to see in total darkness. Instead, he harassed me with condemnation. He was concerned only with our victims, with fishing my intuition and getting on with it. And we finally came upon our victims. He rushed me into action. They were a small camp of runaway slaves. Lestat had visited them before and picked off perhaps a fourth of their number by watching from the dark for one of them to leave the fire, or by taking them in their sleep. They knew absolutely nothing of Lestat's presence. We had to watch for well over an hour before one of the men, they were all men, finally left the clearing and came just a few paces into the trees. He unhooked his pants now and attended to an ordinary physical necessity. As he turned to go, Lestat shook me and said, "Take him." The vampire smiled at the boy's wide eyes. "I think I was about as horror-struck as you would be," he said, "but I didn't know that I might kill animals instead of humans." I said quickly, "I could not possibly take him." And the slave heard me speak. He turned his back to distant fire. He peered into the dark, then quickly and silently he drew a long knife out of his belt. He was naked except for the pants and the belt. A tall, strong-armed, sleek young man. He said something in French, Portuguese, and then he stepped forward. I realized, though I saw him clearly in the dark, he could not see us. Lestat stepped in back of him with a swiftness that baffled me and got a hold around his neck while he pinned his left arm. The slave cried out and tried to throw Lestat off. He sank his teeth now, and the slave froze as if from snake bite. He sank to his knees, and Lestat ran fast as the other slave came running. "You sicken me," he said when he got back to me. It was as if we were black insects, utterly camouflaged in the night. Watching the slaves move obvious to us, discovering the wounded man, dragged him back, fan out in the foliage, searching for the attacker. "Come on, we have to go get another one before they all come. Return to camp," he said, and quickly we set off after one man who was separated from the others. I was still terribly agitated, convinced I couldn't bring myself to attack, feeling no urge to do so. There are many things as imagined which Lestat might have said and done. He might have made the experience rich in so many ways, but he did not. But he could have. What could he have done? The boy asked. "What do you mean? Killing is no ordinary act," said the vampire. "One doesn't simply blood oneself on blood." He shook his head. "It is the experience of another's life for certain, and another's often the experience of the loss of that life through the blood. Slowly, it is again and again the experience of the loss of my own life which I experienced when I sucked the blood from Lestat's breast and felt his heart pound with my heart. It is again and again a celebration of experience, because for vampires that is the ultimate experience." He said this most seriously, as if we were arguing with someone who had a different view. I don't think Lestat ever appreciated that, though how could he? I don't know. Let me say He appreciated something, but very little, I think, of what there is to know. In any event, he took no pains to remind me of what I felt when I clamped into his wrist for life itself and wouldn't let go, or to pick and choose a place for me where I might experience my first kill with some measure of quiet and dignity. He rushed headlong through the encounter as if there was something to put behind us as quickly as possible. Like so many yards of the road, once he had caught the slave, he gagged him and held him, barging his neck. "Do it," he said. "You can't turn back now." Overcome with rebellious and with frustration, I obeyed. I knelt beside the bent, struggling man and clamping my mouth, both my hands on his shoulders. I went into his neck. My teeth had only just begun to change, and I had to tear his flesh to not puncture it. But once the wound was made, blood flowed, and once I was locked into it, drinking, all else would vanish. The sat in the swamp and the noise of the distant camp meant nothing. The sat might have been an insect buzzing, lightning, then vanish insignificant. The second mesmerized me. The warm struggling of the man was soothing to the tension of my hand. And then came the beating of the drum again, which was the drum beat of his heart. Only this time it beat in perfect rhythm with the drum beat of my own heart. The two resounding in every fiber of my being until the beat began to grow slower and slower, so that each beat was a softer rumble that threatened to go without end. I was drowsy, falling to weightlessness, then Lestat pulled me back. "He's dead, you idiot," he said with his charismatic charm intact. "You don't drink after they're dead." Understanding, I was in a frenzy for a moment, not myself, insisting to him that the man's heart was still beat, and I was in agony to clamp onto him again. I ran my hands over his chest, then grabbed at his wrist. I could have cut into his wrist if LaSalle had pulled me to my feet, and slapped my face. This slap was astounding. It was not painful in the ordinary way. It was a sensational shock of another sort, a wrapping of the senses, so that I spun in confusion and found myself helpless and staring at my back against a cypress, the night pulsing with insects in my ear. "You'll die if you do that," the sauce was saying. "He'll suck you right back down into death with him if you cling to him in death. And now you've drunk too much, besides you'll be ill." His voice grated on me. I had the urge to throw myself on him suddenly, and I was feeling just what he said. There was a grinding pain in my stomach, as if some whirlpool there was sucking my inside into itself. It was the blood passing too rapidly into my own blood, but I didn't know it. Lestat moved through the night like a cat, and I followed him. My head was throbbing. This pain and my stomach no better when we reached the house of Point du Lac. As we sat at the table in the parlor, Lissette, Dylan, a game of solitude on the polished wood. I sat there staring at him with contempt. He was mumbling nonsense. I would get used to killing, he said. It would be nothing. I must not allow myself to be shaken. I was reacting too much as if the mortal coil had not been shaken off. I would not become astonished to things all too quickly. Do you think so? I asked him finally. I really had no interest in his answer. I understood how the difference between us. For me, the experience of killing had been the catastrophic. So had that of sucking Lestat's wrist. These experiences so overwhelming and so changed my view of everything around me. And from the picture of my brother on the parlor wall to the sight of a single star in the topmost pane of the French window, that I would not imagine another vampire taking them for granted. I was altered permanently, I knew it. And what I felt was profoundly for everything, and the sound of the playing cards being laid down one by one upon the shining rows of the solitaire was respect. Lestat felt the opposite, or he felt nothing. He was a sow's ear out of which nothing fine could be made. As boring as immortal, as trivial, and as heavy as immortal. He chattered over the game, belittling my experience, utterly locked against the possibility of any experience of his own. By morning, I realized that I was his complete superior, and I had been sadly cheated in having him for a teacher. He must guide me through the necessary lessons, if there were any more real lessons, and I must tolerate him in a frame of mind which was blasphemy to life itself. I felt cold towards him. I felt no contempt and superiority, only a hunger for a new experience, for that which was beautiful as devastating as my kill. I saw that if I were to maximize every experience available to me, I must expert my own powers over my learning. The sun was of no use. It was well past midnight when I finally rose out of the chair and went out on the gallery. The moon was large over the crushed cypress, and the candlelight poured from the open doors. The thick plastic pillars in the walls of the house had been freshly whitewashed, the floorboards freshly swept, and the summer rain had left the night clean, sparkling with drops of water. I leaned against the end pillar of the gallery, my head touching the soft pillar, the soft tender of a jasmine which grew there in constant battle with a wisdom, and I thought of what lay before me throughout the world and throughout time, and resolved to go through it delicately, and recently learning that from each thing which would take me to another, but what this meant I wasn't sure myself. Do you understand what I say? I did not wish to rush headlong into experience that what I felt as if a vampire was too powerful to be wasted. Yes, said the boy eagerly. It sounds as if it was like being in love. The vampire's eyes gleamed. That's correct. It is like being in love. He smiled. And I tell you my frame of mind that night, so you can know there is no profound difference between vampires and how I came to take a different approach from the set. You must understand, I did not snooze him because he did not appreciate his experience. I simply could not understand how such feelings could be wasted. But then Lasat did something which was to show me a way to go about my learning. He was more than a casual apprentice of the wealth at Point du Lac. He had been much pleased by the beauty of the china used for his father's supper, and he liked the feel of the velvet drapes, and he traced the patterns of the covers with his toe. And now he took from one of the china closets a crystal glass as I do miss glasses. Only he said that this was an precious light that caused me to study him with a hard eye. I dislike him intensely. I want to show you a little trick, he said. That is, if you like glasses. And after setting it on the card table, he came out of the gallery where I stood and changed his manner again into that of a stalking animal, eyes peering the dark beyond the light of the house, peering down under the arching branches of the oaks. In an instant, he had valet the railing and dropped softly on the dirt below. He then lunged into the darkness to catch something in both hands. When he stood before me with it, I grasped to see it was a rat. Don't be such a damn idiot, he said. Haven't you seen a rat? It was huge, struggling field rat with a long tail. He held it so it couldn't bite. Rats can be quite nice, he said. And he took the rat to the wine glass, splashed its throat, and filled the glass rapidly with blood. The rat went hurling over the gallery railing, and the Lasat held the wine glass on the candle triumphantly. You may well have to live off rats from time to time, so wipe that expression off your face, he said. Rats, chicken, cattle, traveling by ship, you damn well better live off rats. If you don't wish to cause such a panic on board that they search your coffin, you damn well better keep the ship clean of rats. And then he slipped the blood as delicate as if it was burgundy. He made a slight face. It's so cold. It gets cold so fast. Do you mean then we can live from animals? I asked. Yes. He drank it all down and then casually threw the glass at the fireplace. I stared at the fragment. You don't mind, do you? He gestured to the broken glass with a sarcastic smile. I surely hope you don't, because there's nothing much you can do about it if you don't. If you do mind. I can throw you and your father out of Point du Lac, if I mind, he said. I said, I believe this was my first show of temper. Why would you do that? He asked with a mock alarm. You don't know everything yet, do you? He was laughing then and was walking slowly about the room. He ran his fingers over the satin. Finish of the spine. Do you play? I said something like, "Don't touch it." He laughed at me. "I'll touch it if I like," he said. "You don't know, for example, all the ways you can die, and dying now would be such a calamity, wouldn't it? There must be someone else in the world to teach me these things," I said. "Certainly you're not the only vampire. A fire, and your father, he's perhaps 70, and you couldn't have been a vampire long. So you must have instructed. So someone must have instructed you." We're going to be stopping here for the night on page 34.
Are you okay?
It's okay,
Quick.
baby.
No, move quick. Come on.
Baby, it's okay.
No, would you please just...
Baby, what's wrong?
I need to get down to something. Please, let me just...
Baby, it's okay. Relax.
I just want to get down to something.
Baby, my pillows are right here.
Alright. That's not what I'm... I just want to see what's at the bottom. Right here. That's all.
Baby, it's my
How
pillows.
many times are you going to...
My pillows are right here.
There's nothing else?
Nothing else.
Alright.
Go back to sleep, baby.
Okay.
I love you.
I love you too.
I love you, baby.
I love you too.
I'm sorry if I disturbed you.
It's alright.
I love you.
I love you too.